The very interesting and fundamental question that I'm sure we've thought about over the years, like who's really in a better situation? Is it better to have sinned and to have done tshuva for the sin, or is it better not to have ever sinned at all? Where do you attain a higher level of spirituality? So one more time, it is about tshuva equal to a tzaddik who's never sinned, not even once, and he knows it's a tshuva abad. Let me give you the following answer because it's not so clear cut. Says the Chavos Avos say, Baal Tshuva is divided into three different categories. In one regard, there are certain Baalei Tshuva who are equal to those people who've never sinned. The tzaddik, again, maybe you say, well, what relevance? Is there ever a tzaddik that never sinned? Well, I guess you can argue no. We know from Shalom Melech, Ein tzaddik bar tashiyasa tov alechta. Everyone sins to some degree, but I guess on a relative scale, if you're basically pure and you've never fallen, into any real chet, where does that put you as relates to the Baal Tshuva who has sinned and somehow has been able to eradicate that sin? So there are those Baal Tshuva who are equal to those. Then there are those who are actually on a higher level than the Tzaddik Gomer, which is certainly something that we're familiar with, because as he's going to quote soon, coming up, he's going to quote the famous Gemara that b'mokum shabal tshuva omeid ein tzaddik gomer yochel lamod bo. And that's what I think we're accustomed to, the thought process that basically you cannot compare that the fight of the Baal Tshuva to overcome the challenges makes him greater than the tzaddik. So let's see. The Yesham, and that was category 2. There are those who are equal, there are those who are greater. The Yesham Baalei Tshuva she'emdim b'madreg yosen mucha mehem. And then there are those who are actually lower than the tzaddik gomer, afa pi shechazu b'tshuva, even though they, have indeed done tshuva, but they still are on a lower plane. So I'm not going to explain to you, says the Chavos Avos, how they shake out. Which are the Baalei Tshuva that are in category 1, category 2, and category 3. So Achelik Harishon Kolo Baalei Tshuva Shechatom Hayishol Kimu Mitzvos Asay Shel Chayven Alem Koros. So different types of errors in the world. And in the past we've done the Rambam Hilchos Tshuva, and he certainly delineates this as well. There are people who need to do tshuva for the sins in the regard that they did not fulfill a positive commandment. Shleikimu mitzvahs asay. What kind of asay? An asay that does not have chorus. And in reality, that's every single of the 248 positive commandments. Only 2 do have a chorus. Only 2 positive commandments that have a death penalty, so to speak. Chorus is getting cut off early, and various other elements of the punishment of chorus, but it's essentially a death penalty. And every single positive commandment does not carry the death penalty other than Bris Milah and Korban Pesach. Those 2 do carry chorus. But everything else, the other 246 don't. So if a person transgressed any of the assays, any of the 246 positive commandments, could go mitzvah tzitzis, for example. He goes through a number of examples. Tzitzis would be one, lulav, sukkah, or mitzvahs domos, any of the other types of commandments where the Torah says, do something. Okay? Put on tefillin, respect your parents. All of the positive commandments that are in the Torah, if a person transgressed any of them, v'kashem chozrim b'tshuva b'libom u'b'shonam, and then when they return with an honest repentance in their heart and in their speech, al shebitlu mitzvahs eila, and because they recognized and they thought about it, they said, my gosh, I have not fulfilled one of the commandments HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants me to do. He's given me his directive, and I have not followed through. But now I want to change. I resolve, and we've gone through the various elements of tshuva, the feeling bad about the sin, the acceptance upon oneself to not let it happen again, moving away from the bad habit that's led them to that sin. So they are now completely focused and ready to change. I will, from now on, respect my parents. I will, from now on, put on tzitzis. I will, from now on, sit in a sukkah. Okay, and they have not gone back, because obviously if you go back to that sin, you're in a bad state, and that's a problem. We discussed that last time. We learned that the whole idea of going back and not being consistent creates a real challenge for one, at least according to the Chavos Avavos. It puts the entire tshuva in question. So the person did not go back. The person is consistently doing the mitzvah that they felt bad that they had not done. Habari salech lehem. For a mitzvah zaseh, Kadosh Baruch Hu says, you give me tshuva on a positive commandment, I'm going to forgive you. Ve'im nasim shavim l'tzadikim, and on that realm they become equal to a tzaddik shloi bitlu mitzvahs elam yodam, a tzaddik who never transgressed, never did not put on tzitzis, never did not put on tefillin, always sat in the sukkah, always was mechabed avav imoy. So a person who transgresses and commits the sin by omitting and not fulfilling the mitzvah, and then feels bad and does tshuva, that tshuva is able to completely eradicate the sin to the point that you're back on even keel with the tzaddik. This is category one. What you did was an asay. It was a positive commandment. It didn't have a death penalty attached to it. It was one of the 246 positive commandments we have in the Torah. And by doing tshuva at that particular moment, the response is, like HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, in a sense, you're good. You're literally back to the original state you were in. You were pure. You started pure, and now you're back to being pure. V'al balei tshuva eila nemer, and about these balei tshuva, the pasuk says, "Achayzer b'tshuva me'achet." Somebody comes back and returns with tshuva from a sin, kilo chata afpam. It's like you never sinned. This is the statement, this is the reference, and this is the category. It's like you never sinned, it's gone. You've expunged your sin completely. Rabbi Avrohom Stulberger Omra Leim, and the rabbis have said about such a person, a pasuk Gemara and Yuma, over al mitzvah say she'ein bo kares v'asar tshuva. If a person transgresses any of the positive commandments that don't have the death penalty attached to them, as we mentioned, there are only two of them, and does tshuva, eino zaz misham ad shemochlo. The Rambam quotes this as well, that a person does not move from that place. You're able to sort of push the envelope and demand, in a sense, tshuva right then and there. The sincerity of a person's return, the resolve to do that mitzvah from now on a regular basis, never to go back to those bad habits. The person is able to expunge that sin on the spot. You don't need Yom Kippur, you don't need anything else. You have tshuva right where you are. You don't even move. You don't have to move. You don't have to budge from your position. Shenemar shuva elai v'shuva elechem. You return to me, and I will bring you back to me. You make your steps in my direction to do the tshuva, and I will finish the job by expunging the sin, and nothing more has to be done. This is category one, where the aver was an asay, the tshuva was complete in its structure. You did everything you needed to do. You had the feelings, you had the commitment, and now you're back to where you are, and you're equal to a tzaddik gomer who never sinned. Let's go to the second category. Category two, which elevates that Baal Tshuva above and beyond the level of a tzaddik. I know some people are thinking right now, so let me do the Aveira, and then I'll become a Baal Tshuva, and I'll become better than the tzaddik. Not a good idea, but not for now, but definitely not the right strategy. Even though had you been successful in the process, maybe that would result that way, but you can't plan that because that completely disrupts your opportunity, because HaKadosh Baruch Hu sort of reminded us, if you plan on doing the sin so that you can do tshuva later on, you don't end up with those possibilities. It doesn't work out for you. So, who's the Baal Tshuva that's on a higher level than the tzaddik? Kolel Baal Tshuva she'ovru al averos kalos. Interesting. So, we don't look at any Aveira, nor should we look at any Aveira as a light one, because the Pirkei Avos does tell us, right, measure and consider every Aveira as being extremely serious, but in halacha they are called light because they are lighter than the more severe ones. So of the negative commandments that we have in the Torah, the 365 negative prohibitions, there are many that carry the death penalty, and there are those who carry the penalty of malchus, of lashes. They are called light. Not that 39 lashes is light. It's certainly a very severe punishment, but compared to a penalty, Aveira, it's called light. So this category 2 includes those individuals who transgressed on a relatively light avera. Dahainu, what does that mean, a light avera? A mitzvos lo saseh lo chayav aleim kares. Okay, it is talking about a negative commandment where the punishment is not death, such as eating non-kosher, speaking lashon hara. These are not death penalty averos. There are many of them. Wearing shatnez. These are averos that are obviously things we don't want to get near, but they do not carry a death penalty. V'yachakach osoleim tshuva shlema al kol pratel. When and after involving oneself in the negative prohibition, one has the clarity and the epiphany that I have to change. I have to come back to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and they do tshuva in all its details, with all of the nuances of what tshuva entails. V'samu es avonasehem mul peneim v'neged, and they place their averos. This is now he's sort of delving into the aspects of what really makes a tshuva complete. The avera is in front of that person at all times. And again, this is not to put anybody into neurosis and into psychosis or any type of depression, but if a person truly understood the magnitude of a sin, the idea of carrying that weight of that sin on your mind, not to debilitate you, not to paralyze you, but to motivate you to make sure you don't go back there again. I guess, it's like people lose weight, they have the picture of before their weight loss, they keep the picture right on the refrigerator to constantly remind them of, I'm not going to go back there, I'm going to stay where I am, I'm going to continue to lose the weight. So there are different, things we can do to make sure that we don't go back. This is not something that should be onerous and difficult, but it's something that should be a motivator. So we put that avera in front of our eyes, in front of our faces. We ask HaKadosh Baruch Hu all the time. As the Rambam talks about the fact that it's a noble thing to go back to the averos that we've done and ask HaKadosh Baruch Hu again and again to make sure that we've reached that point of sincerity. And the person who is in the midst of this tshuva is embarrassed from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. How do I face you? How do I approach you when I know what I've done? And there's a fear that comes over that person. Oh my gosh, what's going to be the retribution for this? How am I going to deal with the punishment of what this avera is going to bring me? So you're being motivated by that as well. You think about the sin and the punishment of that sin. Inside there's a broken spirit. There's true remorse and there's true humility. And when these people stand in front of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, there's true shiftless. There's a lowness. There's a humility of spirit that permeates this person as they daven to HaKadosh Baruch Hu and as they do tshuva. This is a very, very solid tshuva situation. A person who's truly remorseful, truly regretful. And this sin that one is carrying the guilt and carrying the desire to do tshuva and the desire to come close to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, brings a person to a level of achna, to a level of humility, and one is totally motivated to do what I need to do, what HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants me to do. Because when a person recognizes that they've done wrong, and they've done an avera, and again, in this case, an avera that is a negative prohibition, that does not have a death penalty to it, how could I have done that? How could I have eaten that non-kosher food? How could I have spoken lashon hara? How could I have worn shatnez? Whatever the situation might be. How do I, basa v'chalav? So many different possibilities. How can I now make up for that? So a person at that point is motivated to come close to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. I have to do whatever I could possibly do to bring myself closer to Hashem. So there's a real ishtadlus to fulfill one's obligations that are placed upon every Jew as it relates to God. And the fact that I've done many mitzvahs, I'm not going to be proud of that. I'm not going to feel superior to anybody because of that. Because, who am I to feel better? I've done wrong. I feel totally humbled and truly small by what I've done. And therefore, just because I've done a lot of good things, I've done a lot of mitzvahs, I'm not going to let that sort of get to me and give me a sort of swagger that makes me feel in any way superior. And the fact that they've done a lot of good deeds, it doesn't seem like a lot. It always seems like, I've done, Baruch Hashem, I've done mitzvahs, but I've got a lot more to do. And again, this person is not, in a way, beating down on oneself, to depress oneself. But a person, again, this is the kind of motivation. I'm not saying everyone can handle this. There are the people who couldn't deal with this kind of reproach of oneself because it might be too strong. But a person who could handle it can use this for incredible motivation. And all of the good things they don't sort of wear as a badge of honor, and they don't glamorize it, and they don't use it to feel to promote themselves above other people. And they take precautions not to fall into that trap any time again for the rest of their lives. This is where this person is at. This is what the person has done. This takes a lot of work. This is sort of the very end of the Shari Tshuva of Rabbeinu Yonah. It requires so much emotion, so much focus. So we're not talking about something that could be done just like this. It requires tremendous effort. But if a person can reach this level, if a person could have transgressed such an avera and then come back with this kind of feeling on a regular basis, on a daily basis, Bal Tshuva Elohim Sha'omdim B'darga Yoser Gavaya Me'etzadikim Shloi Avru Me'odam they are actually better than the tzaddikim that have never transgressed. And now, when we've heard this many times before, we always think about the fact that the reason why they're superiors, look at the fight, look at the uphill climb, look at what they've done. They've dug themselves a hole, and they're able to climb out of that hole and get to the top with all that hard work and all that feeling of remorse and angst and anguish and pain and embarrassment. The Baal Tshuva, the tzaddik never had to feel that. The tzaddik has been on a even keel all the way throughout their lives. He's done, or she's done, everything wonderfully. So I don't have to go through this tremendous climb up that very, very steep mountain. So that is the conventional wisdom of what makes a Baal Tshuva superior to a tzaddik, and that's what you would have thought he'd continue with here in this paragraph. But he sort of takes a little detour and doesn't go there. Not to say I don't think you can prove that he doesn't agree with that point, but in the Chovos HaLevavos' mind, it seems like that's not the nekuda that takes you and makes you superior. That's not the point that's going to make the difference in considering you to be of a higher level than a Baal Tshuva. Look what he says, very interesting. The Tamadavar, the reason why you're Yosi Gavoa, why you're higher than the tzaddik, because a tzaddik who never sinned. How incredible is what he's about to say? Ein anu betuchim bo shlo yizgoya, v'lo yagbi eslibo. We're not so sure. I guess it's interesting because he hasn't done anything wrong yet. But it seems like he's in a precarious state. Precarious state? The man's outside the government. What's a precarious state? Well, something can seep in. An emotion can seep in that could literally devastate this person to get him to the point where he's lower than the person who did sin. How? He says, because we're not sure, one more time, we can't be certain. We don't have any real confidence. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, I guess, doesn't, or Chazal, in sort of painting this individual, does not have that sense that there's not going to be some gaiva that sets in, some haughtiness. Look at me. I'm a tzaddik. I got all these people around me. They're sinners. They're Bali Tshuva. Look at me. I never had to fall into any of these traps. I'm pretty choshev. His heart will not become elevated, and he's not going to feel very good about this incredible track record that he has of never falling into any pitfalls. And therefore, we're not confident of that. This person is literally walking on a precipice of a fall that can really impact this person's life. And we can't be certain that he's not going to fall to a point where if that gaiva seeps in, and it's almost imperceptible. It isn't like we're going to see it. It isn't like he's going to do an avera that's a blatant avera. He's going to stay at tzaddik on paper. He's going to stay at tzaddik gomer. But in that tzidkis, there's a little bit of a bad seed. Okay, and that's going to bring you down. As a famous saying, does not quote where, but it seems like it's it's a well-known saying, the Chovos Avos alludes, that lepamim, there are times, there are times that sin actually helps the sinner more than all of the righteousness helps the righteous person. Of all of your righteousness, all of your mitzvos, it could actually end up being a situation where the sins of that person who is a sinner actually will help him in a better way than all of the righteousness of the righteous. Ulapamim, and the reverse side, and it says it both ways, there are times that the person's righteousness will cause a damage to that person more than what all of the damage that the sins cause to a person, the righteousness might actually cause a greater level of damage. Because I guess it's harder to recognize, it's more imperceptible, it can seep in very insidiously, and maybe what the Gemara is saying is, if you're not super careful, it's going to set in. In other words, therefore the assumption is made that the Baal Tshuva Gomer, obviously you have to be a Baal Tshuva of the level of what the Chovos Avos describes, but if you're on that level, then what you've overcome compared to what's going to seep into the person who never had your humility. The very fact that you had a downfall sort of secures you humility. Not that nothing's guaranteed, but it puts it in a much more secure place because you know what you've done. You know you have no place to feel haughty and to feel superior. So you're going to keep that lower perspective. But that Tzaddik Gomer, it doesn't have the track record, the negative track record that the other person has, and therefore it could easily, that's it. I'm fine. I'm good. And therefore, when you compare, and it's hard. I mean, it's something that I've spoken about many times. That in other words, the minute you maintain a higher standard in your life, and you certainly understand schools motivated to do that. But when that happens, and that individual who's on a high level and keep a lot of different things, it becomes very hard to look at somebody who's not doing that and not feel they're not as good as me. I'm better than them. Look at all the chumras I do. Look at all this that I do. Look at what I wear and how I look. And it is a very dangerous thing. And the Chovos Avos is telling us, if you start feeling smug about who you are, you could be a tzaddik gomer, but that smugness is mamish going to be a downfall. Incredible thing. That you see how midos play such a critical role in God's view of every individual. Masai zeh korei l'tzaddik. Okay. And when is this person called a tzaddik? Kishetzit kosa goremes or lifnos oref lachno uledovik begayvu v'tzius avas hashevach. Right. So when does this happen? When he's still in the middle of explaining this sort of drawback to the righteousness. When does it happen? When you turn your back on humility. When sort of, humility is not for me because I'm just so good that there's no room for humility in my world. Look at how amazing I am. So, other people can be humble because it fits for them because of their misdeeds, but I don't have any misdeeds. So I got to look at the world from the point of view that I'm better than everybody else. So he turns his back. His neck is sort of turned away from humility. Lidovik begayven, a person clings to haughtiness, uvitzius, and sort of a hypocrisy where they're sort of catering to maybe people just to gain favor. Uvavas hashevach, and they love praise. There's sort of a falsehood that starts seeping in, and this is poison. It's mamish poison. Vayishman Yishurim Vayivot, when a Jew starts feeling a little comfortable, a little fat, so to speak, in terms of Vayishman Yishurim, that there's a comfort level, that's devastating. And so said one of the great righteous people to his students, if you didn't have any sin, he was sort of saying, don't feel bad that you have sin. In a way, sin can serve you well, and this is, again, not a recommendation if anybody has sinned. But the reality of the fact that we have sinned in our lives does, in a way, work to our benefit, if we can come back. Obviously, if a person stays in sin, then they're really in trouble. But if a person comes back from sin, so says the tzaddik to his disciple, had you had no sin, I would be afraid that you would, God forbid, end up falling in a matter that's worse than sin. Incredible statement. if you didn't have any sin, I'd be nervous that you shouldn't fall into a trap that would be worse than sin. Worse than sin. Shalu osa tamid of the Talmud then asks the Rebbe, what can be worse than sin? Sin is the worst thing, isn't it? Well, yes and no. Sin is bad when it becomes very obvious you did an avera. The tzaddik answers back, hagaiva v'atzvius. When you have a sort of a falsehood about you, where again he says on top here in the actual language, chanifa. Chanifa is when you're trying to ingratiate yourself to people. So you're having this type of the hypocrisy of sort of playing up to certain people, and you get this gaiva where you're trying to focus on yourself, and you want people to recognize you, and you feel superior. So that's what can happen. So when you have this sort of direct contrast between the Baal Tshuva, who does an Aveira, a Lav, a negative prohibition, one that does not carry the death penalty, and does a full Tshuva, comes all the way back and climbs that mountain, gets to the top, and realizes and constantly reminds themselves of where they've been, and therefore they have to keep that humility in check, versus the Tzaddik Gomer, who's literally in a very, very tough spot because it's so easy for that gaiva to get in. So, he's more secure. His spiritual state is in a stronger, better position. And that tzaddik who is literally flirting with gaiva at every moment, because if he doesn't watch himself so carefully, it's going to get in. And it's about these Bali Tshuva that our rabbis taught us, the famous Gemara in Brachos, B'makom shabali Tshuva oimdim, ein tzadikim yacholum lamod. That's where this tzaddik is. He's great, he's wonderful, but he can't be in the place of Bal Tshuva. The tzaddik gomer cannot stand in that place. That's level number 2. What about level 3? So where does that fit in? And this is the level that he said the Baal Tshuva is wonderful, but not as great as the tzaddik gomer. And again, this is not to say every Rishon agrees with this, but this is certainly the Chovos HaLevavos Shita saying to us very clearly that the third category that makes you less than the tzaddik gomer is if a Jew transgressed on a very severe avera. And again, this is not inclusive of a category that, and nowadays we associate the word Bali Tshuva with people who just never knew. And the Bali Tshuva, because they made that long journey back, it's really not back because they never were there, they never knew. And they were then exposed to truth, exposed to Torah, and exposed to beauty, and they were inspired by it, and they came back. They came closer, I should say. They really didn't come back because they never really were there in the first place. That's really not what we're talking about. But somebody who certainly knew the extent of the averos that they did. Person never knew about Shabbos. I don't think this is what he's talking about. He's talking about somebody who was aware of Shabbos and transgressed the avera of Shabbos or any other of the negative prohibitions that have the death penalty attached to them. Dainu al mitzvahs also say she'achayom aleim misa b'dei shemayim or koros b'dei shemayim. Right? In the death penalty category, there are 2 types of death penalties. There's either death penalty through HaKadosh Baruch Hu's intervention, that's called koros, misa b'dei shemayim, 2 different categories in that regard. Or misa b'dei adam. There's koros b'dei shemayim, the misa b'dei adam, which are, of course, the 4 different categories of capital punishment which the Torah gives to people who have transgressed certain averos that are obviously extremely severe. Kagon chil Hashem, shua sheker. So any of these 2 included in these 2 categories of either koros or misa b'dei adam, the death penalty, misas bezdin, would include chil Hashem, shua sheker, a false oath, or averos chamuros, hacheres, adomos, any other similar types of averos. Okay, chalev, a certain prohibited fat, has a koros penalty. Many different averos that have either koros or misa. Obviously, Shabbos is certainly well known. Obviously, adultery, idolatry, murder, these are obviously of the highest, most severe averos. So if a person transgressed one of these averos, but they now did tshuva, and they recognize what they did wrong, and they want to come back to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. V'yoslam tshuva shlema Al Kol Ikorel Protel, and they did a full-fledged tshuva with all of the details and all of the nuances that are required by halacha. LeBalei tshuva ela, for these balei tshuva, yefshel sloach idei tshuva bilvad. You can't, tshuva alone can't do it for you. This is the Rambam. It's all based on the Gemara. Tshuva alone, as powerful as tshuva is, and as powerful as tshuva is with Yom Kippur, it still can't do it by itself. You need a little help after that. For such a severe avera, what you need after Yom Kippur, and after, he doesn't talk about Yom Kippur, but what you need after tshuva, they need to go through challenges in life that they can endure. Because really there are no challenges that we can't endure. If HaKadosh Baruch Hu puts us in a position, it means we can handle it. As overwhelming as it seems, Rahman al-Islam, sometimes we can handle it. So if we go through challenges, which we can bear, and through those challenges we become purified from our sin. It's about these Bali Tshuva our rabbis teach us, Gemara and Yuma, if a person transgresses one of these incredibly serious averos that either have a chorus or a capital punishment to them, and does tshuva for them from these averos, you soon remarking the anguish, the challenges, the pain, the suffering, the difficulties. And it sometimes doesn't have to be that difficult. The Gemara talks about the fact that even when you go into your pocket and you try to grab one coin, you grab a different coin, and you have a little bit of frustration. You're a little bit of a kvetch. HaKadosh Baruch Hu takes that into account as well. So yes, we know of Rahman al-Islam severe situations of challenges, but really everything that a person goes through in life, that's not exactly what they planned, does serve to eradicate some of the sin that we fell into the trap of. So as the Gemara says, Yisurim Markin, the challenges, the difficulties in life sort of expunge it and purify it to some degree. However, Umisim Chaperes. What closes the deal is death. Again, this is a little bit different than the Rambam, but this is his shita that if for any Mises Bezin you need both. You need the tshuva, you need the Yisurim, and you need the Misa. The ultimate death when a person dies, that is the ultimate expunger of the sin completely. Shenemar, as a pasuk says, "Ufakarti b'shevet pisham uvinigom avonim." I will visit upon them with my staff punishment for their sins and with different afflictions because of their iniquities. Shenemar, in a pasuk in Yeshayahu, "Imichupar ha'avon hazel lochem atamusin," that you will not be forgiven from these sins until death. Death will be the ultimate power that removes the sins. Vein suffik. And therefore there is no doubt about these types of people, as wonderful as that tshuva is, and it can get you to a very, very high level, but if a tzaddik never transgressed any of these averos, from these bali tshuva, it's wonderful where that person is, that the person can come back from such a horrific sin, but that, for this category, you don't have a status of being superior to a tzaddik gomer. Tzaddik gomer never went down this road, and the other person did. And since you need other things to fully get you back, it's not going to ultimately get to where you need to go. It reminds me of a story I once heard. Because again, it's hard. We pray every day. We shouldn't get challenges. We pray every day. That obviously every day should go smoothly, and we should not have any tests. But there's a famous story about a fellow who heard about a Rebbe in a neighboring town, and he went through terrible suffering, and he just couldn't understand what was going on. And he heard that you have to go to this Rebbe, and he'll explain it to you, and he'll give you chizuk, and it'll be good. Go to the Rebbe, things will be fine. So he travels to this Rebbe. It's a nice long journey to get to the next town. He knocks on the door. Rebbetzin comes out, says, "The Rebbe will be with you shortly. Please wait in this room." And he's waiting in this room, and he dozes off. He has a little dremel there, and he's I don't know if there was background music. Probably didn't have the dentist chair music playing in the background. But he dozes off, and he falls into a deep sleep. And in this sleep and in his slumber, he's dreaming that he is in the next world. And the next world, there's the prosecutor, and then there's the defense attorney. And the defense attorney, the prosecutor comes out first and says, "Look at this guy. Look at the terrible things he did. He brings all the, brings all the negative stuff, and then, all the tzaddik. So he's got this on the scale, and the Averis are weighing down. Then the defense attorney gets up and says, "Wait a minute, but this, Yankel did a lot of wonderful things, and all the mitzvahs come out, and still." The Averos are still weighed down a little bit heavier than the mitzvos, and the prosecutor says, "Okay, look, listen, we gotta send him to Gehenna." So the defense attorney says, "Well, wait a minute, we're not done yet. Let's bring out the yisurim, bring out the pain and anguish and challenge that this person had in his lifetime." And the challenges come out, and it's getting closer. It's getting closer. It's almost there with the positive, together with the challenges of a person's life and the difficulties that they had, is about to weigh on the other side, and probably and about to tip him over to the top, to where he can feel that he's a tzaddik and go straight to Gan Eden. And all of a sudden, he's in this deep sleep and he's visioning this, and he screams out, "I need more Yisurim, I need more Yisurim, I need more punishment, I need more difficult, I need more challenges." This is what he's screaming out in his dream. And right away, this person's screaming in the dream, and the Rebbe comes running out and says, "Sir, are you okay? Are you okay? Everything okay?" And he realized he was in a deep sleep, and he wakes up, and he says, "The Rebbe will be with you in just a couple of minutes. It's okay. I don't need the Rebbe. I'm fine. I can go home now." And he recognized through this dream that that despite the challenges, if we appreciated what it did for us, stop and think for a second that a person did something so serious to warrant the death penalty, but these challenges are what is a contributing factor in expunging. And it's not just this; it could be in any of their. The Yisurim are mamarik. Yisurim difficulties are able to expunge and to a great degree diminish any sin that we've done. And that's why really the Gemara says if we would understand what Yisurim do for us, we would pray for them all day. We're not on the level, and we don't do it because we're not confident that we can handle it, but this is the power of Yisurim. So basically, in Perek Ches, in very powerful terms, the Chovos has delineated the three types of Bali Tshuva: the one that's equal to the tzaddik, the one that's greater than the tzaddik, and the one that is slightly less than the tzaddik. And Bez Hashem, next time we'll pick it up in Perek Tes. Thank you so much.